Back in 2015, not long after I started at Beacon, we decided to try and run a new style of event, not just a patient group training event, but an event that was designed to bring people together, to network essentially. That event was hosted in the heart of Cambridge, and we tried to target people from the university, from the hospitals, from the patient community, and also from industry, which is very active in the Cambridge region. That event was a real success, and it gave a different feel to the type of events we deliver at Beacon, and we decided to entrench it within our calendar. So year on year, we've now delivered the Cambridge Rare Disease Showcase, a networking session interspersed with talks and examples of excellence in the world of rare diseases in the Cambridge area. It's an event we've always enjoyed. It's got a personal connection to our hometown, and also gives us that chance to share stories in a more anecdotal, friendly, relaxed atmosphere, and hopefully inspire new collaborations. Of course, as COVID hit, we were no longer able to deliver this event on an annual basis, and it's been 2 years now since we even met in person. So it was a hugely exciting moment to be able to return to Cambridge in July this year to host the next instalment of the Cambridge Rare Disease Showcase. For me, it was a surprisingly emotional moment, actually, to finally get back on stage again and see, well, a flood of familiar and unfamiliar faces all gathered together to think once more about the world of rare diseases and to try and come together to find ways to move things forward, to share their experience over COVID, to share their hopes, to make new connections. It's something that I won't forget in a hurry, and I'm really excited to return to in-person discussions again soon. Unlike previous editions of the Rare Disease Showcase, we decided to have a keynote talk at the start of this year's presentation, and here we wanted to focus on a story that's collaborative and really rooted in the heart of Cambridge. We're really fortunate enough to be marginally involved with a project on transition in the Cambridgeshire area recently, along with collaborators Costello Medical and Cambridge Rare Disease Network. So Debbie and Joe from CRDN and Costello came together to share some of the work that they'd done on this project, along with the support of Beacon. Transition is all about the movement of patients from paediatric or childhood services into adult care, and it can be a process of real change and unsettling transition for those patients. Very often the care pathways are really well packaged for children with rare conditions because that's where people are more likely to see those early onset genetic conditions. But the movement into adult care can be much harder. There can be less existing services, less specialist clinicians, because most adult clinicians focus on a specific body system rather than actually looking at the totality of the patient as we see in paediatrics. And this can make it a very challenging time for those rare patients to really feel that they're benefiting from the care in the way they did as children, and also a time when they have to take that care on themselves. With Costello Medical and CRDN, we worked together to run a roundtable meeting to bring together adults from the Cambridgeshire area to understand what's currently happening in Cambridge Transition. How are the services currently being delivered, and what's the experience of patients as part of that? And we heard some really challenging situations where patients really felt that they fell between the gaps of existing service. They weren't really given the best care at either end of the spectrum and didn't feel comfortable in the setting that they moved into. And this is something we felt needed to change. So based on that work and research, we put together a really focused transition report that highlights some of the experiences across the Cambridgeshire region and also some of the potential solutions and things we need to focus on. And overall, there were 4 key recommendations. Firstly, it's really crucial as someone who takes responsibility for the coordination of transition within that rare community. It's not good enough simply to say, oh, they're going to go up to this department and that's done. Someone needs to oversee the transition process to make sure the patient, their family and the clinicians on both sides really understand the process and know what's needed to make that a really seamless position. Secondly, transition needs to start really early. We need to make sure that when children are moving into their teenage years, begin to talk about that process and manage and help them understand what to expect. Thirdly, moving children from a nice, friendly, designed paediatric ward straight into an adult ward, often alongside many older patients, isn't really a perfect system. We need to design spaces that are designed for teenage and early young adults, spaces that speak to them and allow them to feel comfortable in themselves. This makes a huge difference on the transition and makes them feel far more able to take control of their own health. And finally, we need to make sure people within the health system are accountable for the transition process. That if things aren't going right, there's someone that can be told about that and is responsible for making sure it improves. And without this accountability, it's very hard to see improvement within transition in rare diseases. It was great to kind of share the experience of this project with the room. We got some really good responses, and we hope that all of our audience will engage with the Rare Disease Transition Report that was put together and help, share your own transition experiences to improve the situation for patients around the UK. After sharing some of the experience in our transition project, we thought it was time to dive back into the heart of the showcase experience, and that is delegates trying to beat the bell. They've got a 5-minute window to deliver their delegate proposed presentation, but they've got to try and beat that bell ringing to cut them off. And it's always interesting to see how effective some of the speakers are. First to take that challenge was Natasha Morgan from the NIHR Bioresource, and she shared with us some of the work that they're doing to try and drive forward an RNA phenotyping project. RNA phenotyping is a really important new approach in understanding the genetic basis of rare conditions, and another type of big data that we hear about a lot in the rare disease world. The project here is really trying to find ways to connect the different types of genetic material that's produced frequently in the cell, the RNA, and how that joins into the expression of a rare condition. It's trying to basically dive into different disease areas to understand what is driving the patient experience of that condition and the symptoms they're seeing. There are a number of different studies being set up through the NIHR Bioresource, which Natasha shared with us, and it's a great opportunity for different rare diseases to really better understand the science and the basis of the condition they experience. Following Natasha, we had a talk from Kim Winter, CEO of Rare Minds, and this is an organisation that's all about putting mental health and rare diseases to the forefront of our perception. Mental health rare diseases are increasingly well documented, whether that's through the challenge of living with a diagnostic odyssey or simply the impact that a rare condition diagnosis can have on your own personal identity and the way you're expressing and interacting with others. Rare Minds have been working in a range of different areas, whether directly supporting patient organisations to find simple ways for them to provide support to their patients, or actually providing direct counselling to the patients themselves. They're making a big difference in this rare space and trying to share the knowledge and learning that they're generating with the wider sector. And this includes the production of a new rare disease care pathway for counselling in rare space. So please do check out Rare Minds to understand the different ways you can engage with mental health in rare patients. And Kim's talk is freely available on our YouTube channel, so you can check it out yourself. Another service that is crucial for rare disease patient organisations to be aware of is that of ARC, Antenatal Results and Choices. And our next speaker, Hannah McInnes-Dean, was sharing some of the key work of ARC and the role that they play in helping people to understand the results that they get from antenatal screening. Now, screening tests during pregnancy are increasingly common, but can have really far-reaching implications, and there's very little guidance on how to understand and interpret these results and what that might mean for you and your future life as a parent, as well as the life of your newborn child. Antenatal Results and Choices provides a really useful and beneficial parent helpline to give them a lot of resources, knowledge and guidance to deal with these kind of challenging pieces of information, and to give effective genetic counselling to help them understand the long-reaching consequences. It's a fantastic service, and I recommend you find out more about it and connect many of your patient group members with this if screening is indeed an issue within your rare community. Now, something we always like to do in all of our Rare Disease Showcase series is ensure we have a patient group leader on stage sharing their experience. And this year, that person, Emma Kinlock from Salivary Gland Cancer UK. Emma gave a really fantastic, energetic and personal talk which shared challenges and journey that they've been through at Salivary Cancer UK, trying to develop a patient community and a patient organisation to drive forward research and improve the prospects of people living with that cancer. And when we hear cancers, we often think of a huge fundraising effort, a huge research effort that's driving forward a broad battle against cancer as a whole. And this is truly the case, but when you have rare cancers or paediatric cancers, it can become increasingly hard to get the attention, the research and the funding effort that's needed to push things forward. And Emma's talk really highlighted some of those challenges there in this rare space and the huge commonalities that exist between rare genetic disorders and rare cancers in how they're trying to push things forward. It was a real privilege to listen to Emma's talk, and again, you can find that on our YouTube channel to hear it directly for yourself. The final brave soul to try and beat the beacon bell was Ron Jordan, the head of a new organisation called Aspire Biosciences, and his talk was entitled Systematic Serendipity. A strange fusion of words, but his idea is a really strong one. The idea is to try and find ways to make it easier to get those sudden inspiring connections between patient organisations or conditions and industry, people working in the life sciences research space, trying to find ways to get a higher likelihood that those connections are made that can lead to the development of a new treatment. Aspire is all about trying to find patient communities, patient groups, and provide them with some guidance, some training, some ideas to allow them to interact effectively with life sciences companies, and then to put those two stakeholders in the same room on a kind of speed dating style to try and find ways to build new connections that could ultimately lead to the development of new medicines for rare conditions. It's a great new initiative, and Ron really shared it in a very clear, engaging and positive way, and we look forward to seeing how this develops in the future. As you can see, this year's Cambridge Rare Disease Showcase was a really interesting evening with some great talks shared, and most importantly, great conversations had within a room of people who all care about advancing the cause of rare diseases. It was an overdue privilege to be able to get back in the room with everybody and share this experience. And whether that was just sharing a quick chat, a quick drink, or really listening to some of the detailed conversation, it made a huge difference to us at Beacon and hopefully to the rare community as a whole. I'm glad I've been able to share some of my thoughts and highlights of the session with you today. And I want to finally thank everyone who made the programme possible, whether that's the team at Beacon or our really important sponsors, Pulse Infoframe, Apparito, Simbeck Orion, Helix, and of course our supporter Alexion. Looking forward to seeing more of you at future events, and I can't wait to have those weird, unexpected and exciting conversations again in the very near future. Thanks for listening.